Enter the Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience presented by Underdog. Week 5 rankings update, full injury report, pick'em plays for Underdog, and the DraftKings ownership and value plays that you're looking for. You want to jump around? Hit the time codes. You can see the order that they come in on the side of the screen right now. It's either that side or that side. When I'm facing the camera, I completely forget which side is which. However, use code MAYO right now at Underdog and get yourself a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. All of the rankings and injury report are updated in the Mayo Media newsletter. That link is down in the description right now if you're looking for a cheat sheet. Additionally, I will be sending out a refreshed injury report and rankings and everything in cheat sheet form, everything that you need to know on Saturday evening once all the finalized injury news comes in for the day. Still waiting on the Saints and Chiefs injury report for Monday Night Football in order to finalize that and the rankings. But they'll be updated in the newsletter. Additionally, the new newsletter will be coming out now, so Mayo Media on Substack if you're looking for it. Also, sub to this channel. By the way, we're almost at 50,000 subs. We'd love to get there. We need your help, so sub to the channel, smash the like, and give me your single favorite pick and play on Underdog in the comment section right now. All right, let's start with the London game. We have the Jets at Minnesota, although it's in London, so I guess it's not really an at situation, but the Vikings are favored by 2.5. It has remained there all week despite everyone, including myself. It is my super lock and my gold bet of the week at 2.5. Everyone's on it. It hasn't moved. It's minus 110. Kind of terrifying, but the favorites have done very well in London over the past couple of years, so hopefully we just continue to ride this. We saw how much Aaron Rodgers struggled last week against a high blitzing defense with the Denver Broncos, and you're going to see a defense that blitzes even more with Brian Flores and the Vikings this week. The pick and play that I put together for Underdog in this. It's a 3-banger, and it pays a little less than 6-1 this week, and we won the Thursday one, so let's roll the money over on this one. Again, code MAYO if you want to use this one, or use any of them, and get that deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Will Ricard, or Ricard sounds better. Ricard's, real dicey when you're thinking about that. 1.5 field goals, higher than that, and that correlates with Aaron Jones, higher than 64.5 rushing yards. We saw in week 1 how much San Francisco dominated on the ground using Jordan Mason against the Jets. But then, realistically, it's tough to tell how good this Jets defense actually is. They played 3 pretty brutal offenses in a row. I think that Minnesota's offense, will not elite, right around top 10 so far this season, that they'll be able to get it going on the ground primarily through Aaron Jones. You just hope he gets stopped a few times, you kick a few field goals. Those two things go together for me. That's why I stayed away from the touchdown for Aaron Jones and the fantasy points from Aaron Jones. So you need to take someone from the Jets to make this one happy, and we'll go with Aaron Rodgers. I talked about the blitzing. Maybe he can hit Garrett Wilson or Breece Hall on a dump off, beat the blitz, and all of a sudden this total looks really, really putrid because you have the lower than 224 passing yards for Aaron Rodgers in this London game. He's off the injury report, but obviously he's still a little bit banged up. So you put those together, you get almost 6 times your money in. We're off to the races and off to a good day for week number 5. A great start with this early game going on. I love the early games personally, but I know not everyone seems to enjoy them. I love having something to do on a Sunday morning instead of just waiting and waiting and waiting. At least there's just one game, and even if it's not good, it's like, something's going on. We can get some action down on this game, and you can too, with code MAYO at Underdog right now. The injury report for the week, we'll start with quarterback, Anthony Richardson's a game time decision. That's the big one. So I actually took him out of the rankings. Now, he still might start, and I'll adjust those if we get the confirmation from Schefter or Rappaport overnight or on Sunday morning. Again, the link will be down in the description. I'll update it when the new one ends up coming out, because that's the one that I'm going to update for the rest of the week and through Sunday if you're trying to check your lineups at that time. So I have Flacco in the rankings right now. So everyone is adjusted to Flacco. So that means that Flacco is quarterback number 14 against the 32nd ranked Jags defense on the road. Josh Downs is 34th in the rankings. Michael Pittman is number 29. I'd probably still stay away from all of the tight ends. You never know who that's going to be, but Flacco not being in hurts Alec Pierce, or at least what we've seen from Alec Pierce. If Joe Flacco is a go, and we do get confirmation that he's starting, the Josh Downs fantasy points over under prop on Underdog is like 6.5 fantasy points. over on that one if you're looking at it, but I want to stay away from that now because I don't have confirmation on Joe Flacco. If Anthony Richardson starts, he'd be a little bit higher, potentially quarterback 12 or 11 against the Jags this week. I would have him a little bit lower in that spot because of the chance of re-aggravation of this hip injury. The fact that he wasn't in practice the entire week leads me to believe it's not the greatest of scenarios for Anthony Richardson, and one more hit could potentially take him out. So that would worry me a little bit. If you are looking for a quarterback underdog pick'em play, hold your nose and go with Tyler Huntley over 162.5 passing yards. It might just take one. A little bubble screen to Tyreek, to Waddle, to A-Chain. Who knows who it's going to be? But it's a criminally low number for a guy that's being based off what he did a week ago when he legitimately did not know the playbook. Not saying he has a full grasp on what's going on right now. And the Patriots defense has been brutal. They have Christian Gonzalez who shuts down a receiver, although there's so much motion in this Dolphins offense that it's going to be hard to peg down one guy. But give him an extra 5 days, 6 days with the playbook, and you have to think a former Pro Bowler, albeit the weirdest Pro Bowler of all time, Tyler Huntley, can get this going just a little bit. I mean, last week he was one pass away, like one step away from hitting Tyreek in full motion and hits this number very easily. So it's one of the lowest numbers you'll ever see in an offense that will be passing the ball, even just a little bit with game breakers. It's not going to make the final underdog play of the week, but that's the quarterback one I was looking at if you're going to go to that. Okay, running backs, injuries for week number 5. Raheem Mostert is going to be in that Dolphins game. I have him ranked as running back number 29 for the week. Devin A-Chain is at number 10 in the running back rankings against New England. Jonathan Taylor is out for the Indianapolis Colts. Trey Sermon is expected to get the majority of the work in the backfield. I have him as running back number 17 in the rankings this week. And then Tyler Goodson, who's probably going to back him up and maybe take on a little bit of a receiving role, is at running back number 41. It's really difficult to figure out between Flacco and Richardson. Again, these are the Flacco rankings at the moment. I probably wouldn't change Sermon, although he might get a slight boost up, although it might even itself out because he's probably going to catch more passes from Flacco, theoretically. But he'll probably have better running lanes if Anthony Richardson starts. So 17 seems to be the case. Projections actually like him a little bit more than that. They have him at running back number 12. I just worry that he's Trey Sermon, and it's just one problem. He's not any good. So I hear that's a problem for fantasy labs. Although through pure volume, he can still probably get there, much like Cam Akers a few weeks ago, maybe even Cam Akers again this week. So Sermon's at 17. Cordero Patterson is out for the Steelers, as is Jaylen Warren. So now what we're looking at is Najee is up to number 15 in the running back rankings for Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys, and Aaron Shankleman is apparently backing him up. He's 51 in the rankings. Probably wouldn't play him. You want to play Najee. That's the guy that you want to play in that spot. And Justin Fields is probably going to eat into his overall upside, hence why he's not a top 10 running back with basically no other player taking away from his volume this week. Joe Mixon is out. Dameon Pierce is leaning out. He may go. He might not go, but he's still dealing with this hamstring injury. He's not 100%. So it's Cam Akers again. I have him one spot behind Sermon as running back number 18. Dare is a little bit down in the high 40s. It's receiving only for him. He had his touchdown last week. He very infrequently scores touchdowns because of the game flow that you usually see with him. So unless it's on the 2-minute warning or they're trying to come back with a minute left in the game, Dare is not going to find himself in the end zone. Maybe if you think that the Bills get up in this game, that you take the Dare over in receiving yards. That I completely understand. But for right now, it's going to be Akers, the majority Akers on the ground, and you can run all over the Bills. Ask Derrick Henry and Justice Hill and Lamar Jackson about that from Sunday Night Football. Zamir White is out with a groin injury for the Raiders. Alexander Mattison is up to running back number 22 in the running back rankings this week. Again, he's not great. The Broncos defense is actually pretty good, and if they do fall behind in this game, you might see an injection of Amir Abdullah in the backfield as well. Devin Singletary is expected to be out for the New York Giants. Tyrone Tracy is $4,300 on DraftKings. He is number 20 in the running back rankings against Seattle, and that is, it's not bad, I suppose. You don't know how much work he's going to get on the ground being like 7-point underdogs in Seattle. The Seattle defense hasn't been great by any stretch of the imagination, but if he can get himself going in the receiving game as well, then there will be real value with Tyrone Tracy. If it's just rushing that you're looking for and maybe trying to steal a touchdown, theoretically possible. unlikely based on the expected game flow here. Running back 20, I still like him more than Alexander Madison, for example, because of the matchup and expected playing time and role that he's going to have. But that's where I would be turning right now. Running back number 20 available in a ton of leagues. But again, $4,300 on DraftKings. We'll get to the DraftKings portion a little bit later on. I still prefer Darius Slayton at $3,900 over the $4,300 Tyrone Tracy. Obviously, they play different positions, but if you're trying to find the giant to save the money on, it would be Slayton still for me over Tracy. Brian Robinson is a game-time decision for the Commanders. I still have him in the rankings at running back number 11. I bumped him down a little bit because, A, he might not play, but we'll know that before the game goes. Or they make him active and don't play him. There's always that risk. Or he gets re-injured. Currently, I have Austin Eckler at number 27 in the rankings. If Robinson is inactive, he would get vaulted up to running back number 16. That would be one spot ahead of Trey Sermon, a spot ahead of Cam Akers, really ahead of that group of backup running backs that we're going with, and McNichols would move into the Eckler spot right around running back 28 or 29 because he would still handle a lot of carries on the ground. That'd be a prop you'd be looking for over Jeremy McNichols' carries against the Cleveland Browns. But as it stands right now, I think Brian Robinson's going to go. The guy was shot in the leg and came back. A knee injury? It's not going to do anything for him. Come on now. And it makes him a great DraftKings play because everyone was staying away from him anyway against the Browns, which you don't need to because they're a bottom 10 defense so far in 2024. But just the re-injury aggravation risk of Brian Robinson. Now in cash games, you stay away. In GPPs, you're trying to shoot the moon here. You take a guy who just handles a ton of the goal line work and might end up with 20 touches in this game. And literally no one is using him because everyone is so afraid of this injury. In season long, you fire him up as long as he is active. Kendry Miller is the other one for the Saints on Monday night. That's another one that I'll update in the newsletter a little bit later on. Subscribe for free. The link is down in the description right now. Or just go to Mayo Media on Substack. You can find it there. It'll just get sent directly to your inbox. Then you bookmark it. Then I'll update it for you in case anything changes. But he may return for Monday Night Football. I wouldn't worry about Alvin Kamara too much with that. He has like a hip problem, a wrist problem, and every problem he just plays anyway. So Alvin Kamara is number 2 in the running back rankings this week. Wouldn't worry too much about the effect it's going to have on him. If you were, for whatever reason, in your NFC South only leagues using Jamal Williams, it's probably going to hurt him a little bit if Kendry Miller is activated in this spot. For the 2 best running back plays I can find on the Underdog Pick'em slate right now is Trey Sermon, actually, because the fantasy point total is pretty low. It's 10.05. Whether it be Flacco or Richardson, that just seems low for a guy that's probably, especially with Flacco, because he'll probably handle the vast majority of goal line touches if they get there against the worst ranked defense in football. But even if he goes like 17 for 61 and a touchdown, he easily clears this number. So higher than 10.05 fantasy points for Trey Sermon. And Emmanuel Wilson in that Rams game, the Rams defense is just brutal all over the place. I still like Josh Jacobs to do a ton. I like all of the Packers to do a ton. But Emmanuel Wilson's rushing attempt total is very low. It's 6.5 right now. Now, he had 12 this last week of Malik Willis, but Malik Willis isn't starting, so let's throw that out. Last week, despite being down 28 points in that game against Minnesota, Emmanuel Wilson still got himself to 8 carries. This is a game where they're probably going to be playing from ahead, but even if they fall behind, they've shown a commitment to get Emmanuel Wilson involved. With Marshawn Lloyd still on injured reserve, there's just no one else. He is the spell for Josh Jacobs, and they will hand him the third and long draws. They will mix him in when Josh Jacobs breaks off a big run or gets stuff. They'll put in Emmanuel Wilson. It grades out as the best running back attempts play of anyone on the Underdog Pick'em slate this week from runthesims.com. So I am going with Emmanuel Wilson higher than 6.5 rushing attempts in week number 5. Khalil Shakir is out for the Buffalo Bills. He's not playing. He's got an ankle injury. This one is very difficult. It's a high total game. The Bills are now underdogs by a point. That is flipped over the course of the past few days with the injuries piling up for the Bills, but I have no idea how this rotation is going to work. I actually ranked Curtis Samuel the highest of the bunch, but he only came in at wide receiver number 42, Keon Coleman at wide receiver number 43. Those would be the 2 I would be specifically targeting if you need someone. Samuel was dropped en masse in most places in season long, so you can probably go pick him up if you're desperate for a receiver this week. I have Mac Hollins at number 61. He might merge into a red zone threat, maybe a first touchdown bet for Mac Hollins, anytime touchdown bet if you really wanted to get involved and waste your money on this game. And MVS I have at 82. So it'd be Samuel and Coleman be the two looks that I'd be going for, and they're not very trustworthy. But if Samuel steps into the Shakir role, it could be very valuable. He's not as good as Shakir, this we know, but even just seeing 7 to 8 targets in this game could be wildly valuable against this Texans defense that generates a ton of pressure, which is good for someone like Curtis Samuel because he's probably going to run crossing routes, shorter A-dot routes, where he can then use his quickness and his speed to get himself downfield. And if the blitz is coming, there might just be lanes open for him if he makes one guy miss. All of a sudden, he's 30 yards down the field. So hence why, I probably shouldn't say that. It's either hence or why. Hence, I have Curtis Samuel at number 42 in the wide receiver rankings this week. His underdog prop on the over as well is very intriguing. I believe it's at 27.5 right now. Could be one catch from Curtis Samuel. And then when he comes back with zeros across the board, you're going to be mad. But hey, this is the prognostication you get from me on this one. Malik Neighbors is out with a concussion against the Seahawks. This is bad news for the entire Giants offense. I've been speaking about this all week in the shorts that I've been doing and in the rankings breakdown show that I did earlier this week. But Neighbors, the entire offense runs through him, so it's not going to function as well. So I like Slayton in terms of, like, if you watch the DraftKings show, I think I played him in 100% of DraftKings lineups. He's $3,900. He's a big play guy, and he's still involved in this offense. He might take over I wouldn't say the majority of the Neighbors role. Slayton's not getting 17 targets and a 35% market share of targets from Daniel Jones in this game, even if they're down by 14 points after the first quarter. Don't worry about that. But I had to drop Wendell down. I had Wendell originally when the Bucs and Falcons were all in at number 17 in the rankings. I dropped him down to number 23, where he stands right now. He's just going to see more coverage. He's more of a focal point. They're missing their starting running back and their focal point receiver. So Wendell's going to end up drawing more coverage. Ditto's going to be for Slayton. I have him at number 40. It's not that I love him this week. It's just price point wise, I like him this week. And I like his over of 39.5 receiving yards as well. Jalen Hyatt does crack the rankings now at number 73. As always, the play with Jalen Hyatt is go to any sort of gambling site and play a same game parlay and parlay together Jalen Hyatt under receptions, Jalen Hyatt over yardage. Do the anti-correlation. It'll pay like 9-1, maybe 13-1, whatever it might be. You could even put it out there higher, like do a receiving over. So under 1.5 receptions, over 40 receiving yards. Like these are the types of plays that Jalen Hyatt gets himself involved with. So where he'll see a few more opportunities on the field this week. That's always a fun one to try to run out. Sunday Night Football, Brennan Cooks is out with an infection. Obviously, you're playing CD, but Tolbert moves up to 45 in the wide receiver rankings. Turpin up to number 67 in the rankings. This is a weird one in Green Bay. So Christian Watson is out, probably multiple weeks with a high ankle sprain, although they're not going to put him on injured reserve. Now Romeo Doubs is going to be out for personal reasons. There's weird reports floating around the interwebs of why he is not playing. I don't believe any of them because none of them are actually confirmed or from like real sources that I trust. It just seems like I have no idea what's going on. What I do know is that he's not playing against the Rams. So Jaden Reed goes up to number 11 in the wide receiver rankings. Wicks comes in at number 26 in the wide receiver rankings. I would play Wicks over Tyreek Hill this week, in case you were wondering, and most definitely over Jalen Waddle. Bo Melton at 84, Malik Heath at number 90, and Tucker Kraft stays steady at tight end number 8. Luke Musgrave may get back in on the action as well, but it's Reed and Wicks and Jordan Love and Kraft. You put those four together in a DraftKings lineup, you've actually saved a ton of money off the hop and go spend way up. It's going to be a very popular stack this week on DraftKings. Noah Brown is out for the Commanders against the Browns with a groin injury. Love me some Noah Brown, but that's not good. Luke McCaffrey is now 50 in the rankings. Diami Brown is number 79 in the rankings. Diami actually plays in the Noah Brown spot, so he'll probably see a big uptick. He and Zacchaeus will probably see a big uptick in snaps. They just don't throw to those guys. They actually throw to Luke McCaffrey. I should probably take a look at the Luke McCaffrey, what he is on Underdog right now, because if they've updated what we should be looking for from him, if it's 1.5 receptions, 2.5 receptions, you can most definitely get to that number. Yeah, it's 2.5 receptions, and it's juiced to the higher at 1.18, so it's a scorcher. It doesn't count in the season long. Guys, some people got confused about that, although it was very clearly in the rules. I'm with you. I don't always read the rules for everything either. Sue me on that one. No, don't sue me on that one. But if you read the rules, it needs to be a prop that's higher or lower as the two options. If it's a single option outcome, it doesn't count for the 25K underdog pool. But the leaderboard is in the description right now to see how you're doing. The guy in first place is picking 100% of his picks correct Unfortunately, he only has 2 picks, and he needs to get to 180 in order to make it count and win that $5,000 at the very top. So check out the leaderboard, see how you're doing. But I do like that higher than 2.5 receptions for Luke McCaffrey in this game. You could do the higher lower of 20.5, but you always got to take that plus money at 1.18. Maybe we'll try to rig one up a little bit later on in the newsletter with Luke McCaffrey, because I already have one solidified for this week for this show. Davante Adams, hamstring, contract, going to Edgar Allan Poe's house. Everyone's saying the Ravens, but, his name is Edgar. I saw someone theorize that, it could be, Philadelphia. That took place in Men in Black, and the alien's name was Edgar. That's where he landed. Or maybe it's the Steelers. Who knows? Maybe he's just Edgar Allan Poe's, quote the Raven. Nevermore. Maybe it's not Baltimore. Maybe he's just going to retire. Maybe that's going to be the end of it. Who knows? These cryptic receivers. But anyway, Jacoby Myers is number 24. In the wide receiver rankings, Trey Tucker is number 35. I like them both, but I could see them both being marginalized against the Broncos at the same time. The opportunity is most definitely going to be there, but whether they can come through on it or not is iffy. We'll get to Trey Tucker in a second when it comes to underdog props, but the other one to look at here, obviously you're playing Brock Bowers, but Harrison Bryant, I've been kind of mentioning this, $2,500 on DraftKings. They played a ton of 2 wide receiver sets as well, with Adams out a week ago, and it was Bryant and Bowers on the field at almost an identical clip. Obviously, they're throwing to Bowers way more than Bryant, but I believe he's like 9-1 anytime touchdown, maybe even higher. He's like 35-1 first touchdown. These would be the markets that I'd be looking for Harrison Bryant in, because he is going to be a red zone threat if the Raiders actually ever get to the red zone, down Davante Adams and down Zamir White. Actually, not having Zamir White might actually be helpful to their offense at this point. Rashee Rice is placed on IR, so he's out at least 4 games. We'll see the extent of the injury once more MRIs end up coming back. But I have Xavier Worthy at 21 in the wide receiver rankings, Justin Watson at 44, Juju at number 51. Tank Dell is going to be back in against the Bills for the Texans. He's at wide receiver number 33. And some other ones to take a look at. Kendrick Bourne is questionable for the Patriots. Who cares? Odell Beckham for the Dolphins. He might get back in this week. We'll see if he gets activated off the physically unable to perform list, but you don't want to play either of these guys. Jaden McMillan and Trey Palmer both missed the game on Thursday Night Football with various injuries. They should return next week. And then you have Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown both on bye week, should return in week number 6 for the Philadelphia Eagles. The underdog plays right now, I'm going with my 3 favorite ones. I'm kind of digging this Luke McCaffrey one all of a sudden. Jerry Jeudy, 5.5 targets as underdogs against the Washington Commanders. Gotta love it. Jeudy has been used with Amari Cooper as the focal point of that passing game. The passing game is terrible, and Deshaun Watson is terrible, but just throw it in Judy's direction. You're going to be off to the races here. And don't forget, Washington still has one of the most putrid secondaries in all football. So Jeudy, 5.5 is actually my top-rated 5.5 targets higher is my top-rated wide receiver play of week number 5. Darius Slayton, I love. That's a personal one. 39.5 higher for him on that regard in terms of receiving yardage. And then Trey Tucker over 7.15 fantasy points. So you can get there very easily. 4 catches for 50 yards would get you there. He has some rushes on the ground. A touchdown gets you there. So there's a lot of ways that Trey Tucker can manufacture this. I doubt that Surtain is going to be the one who's locking down Trey Tucker in week number 5. So as long as he gets ample opportunity, sees around 6 targets, he should most definitely clear the 5.15 fantasy points in half-point PPR scoring on the underdog format right now. Tight ends, we got Taysom Hill is going to be out, likely, for Monday Night Football with that broken rib. I mean, he's Taysom Hill, so he might play. Who knows? Don't want to play the other Saints tight ends. Don't worry about them. Only for showdown purposes. Michael Mayer is out for the Raiders as well, hence why I mentioned Harrison Bryant. It would be Mayer in that spot, but he's out for personal reasons. George Kittle is a game-time decision with a ribs injury. It's not the same injury as last week that he played through with the hamstring. I still love him here. If he's playing, you're playing him. He's tight end number 2. Trey McBride, concussion, will play against the Niners. He's tight end number 4. And then the 2 that I had to drop down a little bit, Evan Ingram got in another limited practice with that hamstring injury. I wanted to see him get in a full practice. He didn't. He remains a game-time decision. I have him as tight end 12, just based on the risk of re-aggravation in that game against the Colts. You do worry that he's just not 100% and just trying to get back out there with the Jags' season essentially on the line right now if they lose to the Colts and they start 0-5. That'd be, let me check. Bad news for the Jags, starting 0-5. Not many teams make the playoffs after starting 0-5, so they may be rushing him back out there just to have an all hands on deck. One bad cut, boom, hamstring pop, he's gone. But he's still good enough, and the target share is there, and tight end is so bad that he's a fringe bottom tight end one, and a guy you could play, same as David Njoku. I'm leaning in with him right now. It looks like he's going to play. I actually like Ingram better than Njoku. Tight end number 13 for Njoku, who's just been objectively bad when Deshaun Watson plays. And most players are bad when on the Browns when Deshaun Watson plays, but especially David Njoku. Coming up next, we're going to have the underdog plays and all of the DraftKings information you need. All right? Stay tuned. For almost about 2 decades, the irons were really the only good part of my golf game, unless you include 300-yard drives, which meant hitting it about 150 yards straight and 150 yards with slice into the woods to the right. So I finally went and got lessons, straightened out my swing, and all of a sudden I could drive the ball pretty decently, pretty straight. And then my irons just kind of went wayward with the new compression that I was getting onto the ball. So it was time for me to make a change with my irons. So when I heard about the new PXG Black Ops irons and how they can dramatically improve my game, I had to give them a try. Booked a fitting with the PXG location, brought in my current irons, and took the PXG challenge. The staff was amazing. We worked on my ball flight through TrackMan in order to find the perfect irons and the perfect length and the perfect loft for what my game demands these days. And the new Black Ops irons are incredibly easy to hit, they maximize performance, and they're fun. Oh, and they're only $149.99 a stick. That is a great price for a great golf iron. So take the PXG Irons Challenge. It's a ton of fun, and if PXG's new Black Ops irons don't outperform your current irons by delivering either more distance or tighter dispersion, that means better accuracy, during your fitting, you'll get a $250 MasterCards reward card. Hurry, this offer ends October 7th. Book your fitting today at pxg.com. That's pxg.com. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Supercharger, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. To recap the Underdog top plays that I'm going with this week, I played a 5-banger on Underdog, and you can too. With code Mayo, you get if you're a first-time depositor and first-time player, you can get a deposit bonus of up to $1,000, and this is a 21 or 10-to-1 depending on how you want to play it. I played it both ways, as needing to go 5 out of 5 for 20-to-1 or 4 out of 5 as a flex play to win 2.5 times your money if it goes 4 out of 5 and 10 times your money if it goes 5 out of 5. Trey Sermon, higher than 10.05 fantasy points. Darius Slayton, higher than 39.5 receiving yards. Emmanuel Wilson, higher than 6.5 rushing attempts. Trey Tucker, higher than 7.15 fantasy points. And Jerry Jeudy, higher than 5.5 targets. And while we were doing the break, I actually went with a nice little two-banger for a pick'em that involved Luke McCaffrey because of the 2 other ones that I had mentioned that I didn't throw on. Tyler Huntley higher than 162.5 passing yards against the New England Patriots. And then Luke McCaffrey higher than 2.5 receptions with Noah Brown out as little favorites over the Cleveland Browns. Short A-dot routes. You get 3 bubble screens. You win, well, what's that one pay? 3.67 times your money on even a 2-banger. So that one's a nice one. So that's the way that I'm going with those ones this week. You can find all of the plays in the Mayo Media newsletter, which is free to join down in the description. And again, code Mayo at Underdog right now gets you that deposit bonus of up to $1,000. On the DraftKings main slate for week number 5, it's going to be difficult to parse the ownership projections based on how many injuries occurred throughout the course of the week. So Tambo and I did the lineup show on Friday, and you can see the stacks that we're going with and the people that we're putting into those places either to save money or to try to pay up. I think that paying up is still the option at running back, even though because you have so many of these values. So at ownership at running back right now, we're looking at Jordan Mason right around 30, Kyron Williams right around 25, maybe to 30, then Chuba Hubbard. After that, you have a whole collection of guys like Kenneth Walker, DeAndre Swift, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry. Javonte Williams is another one, but that's not factoring in a lot of the new players that are coming in. So like right now, Tyrone Tracy is projected for 7% ownership. He's $4,300. He is going to be a player that people use to make lineups work. Even if they don't like him, they're going to try to jam him in because he is so cheap. Other than that, like you still have Alexander Madison. So Madison comes in and he's $5,200 and he's only at a 2% ownership projection. That number has to go up based on the volume. Trey Sermon is another one, a guy who's filling in, although he's a little bit higher at $5,700. He's coming in at 9% ownership. I could see the collection between Sermon, Akers, Madison, and Tracy, and potentially Eckler as well. If Brian Robinson ends up out, all these guys are $5,700 or below, and they're going to end up taking away some of the ownership, maybe not of Mason, because Mason looks like a stone cold lock to be in most of these lineups, or Kyron Williams, but I do think he eventually starts taking away from the Hubbards, from the Kenneth Walkers, from the Josh Jacobs, and their ownership projection will come in a little bit lower, and they'll be a little bit less chalky than you may think. So that's the way that I would be rolling out. I'm still paying up at running back, by the way. There's not a lot of guys I like below Chuba Hubbard. I just don't want to get involved in the mix of trying to pick who the right one is going to be of that bunch. I'd rather punt at receiver and just go towards where the carries are going to be at running back. That's how I want to lock it in. I'm playing a lot of 3 running back lineups this week, and I'm playing a lot of Panthers defense. Not that I love the Panthers defense, but I'm playing a lot of Panthers defense with Chuba Hubbard because it's a very cheap stack to go with. You get some turnovers, some Caleb Williams. Chuba Hubbard punches them in. Maybe Carolina wins the game, although they're 4-point underdogs right now. I know that's not on the high end of probability, but that's the correlation that I like, that I can just jam Mason, I can jam Kyron in there, and Kenneth Walker's another one to look at. The only one that really does seem to be getting overlooked right now, the current projection is 9%, although I think it comes in lower than that, is James Cook. It's a high total game. We already know Shakir is out. Kincaid should see a boost because of that, but it doesn't seem like anyone wants a part, especially now as underdogs. This could be a high reception game for James Cook, especially with Shakir out. I talked about how Curtis Samuel may be used to beat the blitz in this game. It might just be James Cook out of the backfield running blood dumps just over the blitzers, then boom, he's off to the races, and then all of a sudden, if he can get the goal line carries as well, it could be a massive game for James Cook. But he's just at this weird price point at $7,000 where, he can go down like $300 and get Ken Walker, who seems just as good in a much better matchup where you pay up a little bit more for Kyron and for Jordan Mason. And those guys are going to touch the ball at the goal line. There's no Josh Allen to steal their touchdown, so you feel more comfortable with them. So I can just see a spot where he gets squeezed out. So he is one of my favorite pivot plays. He and A-Chain are standing right there, but all of the Miami running backs may return in this game, so all 4 of them, which isn't the greatest scenario in the world. So wide receiver right now, Deontay Johnson and Jaden Reed do seem like they are the 2 that are above the rest in terms of ownership, right around 20%. We did build out some stacks with Dalton, Deontay Johnson, and Chuba Hubbard in that game. It's a very cheap stack to go with if you want to try to jam in those quote-unquote safer options near the top. Here's where it becomes a problem. Dontavian Wicks is now 3rd at right around 18-19%, just behind them. But Jordan Whittington is the Rams receiver that everyone seems to be turning to. He is $4,600. It's not that I don't like him. I think that he's fine. I just find it crazy that for $300 more, you could have the better option just overall. You could have the more consistent option, the guy with the higher target share, the guy with the higher ADOT, and the guy that will win you GPPs in Tutu Atwell. It's $300 more on the same team. Even if you just wanted to run a skinny stack of Wicks and Tutu Atwell, like Wicks is $5,000, Tutu Atwell is $4,900. You're not breaking the bank on that one. It's a very easy one to put together. So I actually like that a lot more than Jordan Whittington because he's just going to get down the field. Like, Jordan Whittington might go 7 for 70 and 2 touchdowns. Maybe. Very unlikely, but maybe. He's more likely to go like 5 for 39 and that's it. Tutu Atwell, while might put up 1 for 34 or something like that, he has the potential for the 5 for 150 2-touchdown game. He can get behind defense. It's the same reason you play Shaheed every single week. It's the same reason we used to play Deshaun Jackson and Ted Ginn every single week as a part of the portfolio in GPPs, because these guys have such boom potential that you don't want to miss out, especially when it's 2 guys on the same team near a relative price point. Just take the better player, even if it's $300 more. Other than that, you're looking at Debo, Nico Collins, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs are getting some love as well. Wendell Robinson should be out there. Of course, I like Darius Slayton. Wendell is $5,600 this week. I like Downs if Flacco plays at $51. But, I just said cheaper. I like Tutu Atwell even more. So you can save the money and get the better player. It's the high ADOT guy versus the low ADOT guy. I feel like Wendell might come back to bite me this week if he ends up having another huge game like he did on Thursday night 10 days ago against the Cowboys. But I just like Slayton at $3,900. It saves you so much money and gets you to the spots, especially at running back, where you want to get to in lineups this week. In terms of points per dollar, if we're looking at it, Trey Tucker actually does rate out the best. Him, Slayton, Wendell. Slayton is 5th, Wendell is 2nd, Trey Tucker is 1st. And then you just have some bigger names that are up there. Jerry Jeudy is another one at $5,200. I don't like his overall upside. But again, for consistent, maybe you get the 7 for 90 game out of him, and hopefully he can find the touchdown. Wicks is another one that rates out really well. But Nico Collins, even at $7,700 against the Bills, is still top 6 in points per dollar plays this week. If you're going to jam in one of the very top receivers, I mean, you're not going to be alone in doing it. He's going to have 18% ownership. So maybe you want to use Jamar Chase instead. But he's looking pretty good at the moment, even with Tank Dell returning in that game. At tight end, it's pretty flat outside of Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft's going to be 24, right around there, percent owned. After that, you're looking at Colby Parkinson at 14% ownership, and Dalton Kincaid has seen a massive boost with Shakir being out at 13% ownership. I'd probably fade Kincaid at that number and just try to find someone else to go with. Tambo and I built out the San Francisco stack, and it works out pretty nicely. Even if you want to use Debo and Kittle with Purdy, you can still make it work if you use the Slaytons and the Tuckers or one of the cheap running backs or a cheap defense. Still works out perfectly, and it's pretty nice. In terms of points per dollar, I believe it's going to be Tucker Kraft rating out the best. Optimizers are going to love him this week. And listen, I like him this week, but I could see how it fails if they just run the ball the entire time and don't use Tucker Kraft, because like 2 catches for 17 yards and a touchdown is not getting you there at 24% ownership, even at $3,500 on DraftKings. And Parkinson just doesn't do enough. Like, I'd still rather play Tucker Kraft than Parkinson, even at he's going to be second highest owned. He's not going to be as chalky as Tucker Kraft. Still rather play Kraft, but I'd be looking down to Cole Kmet at $4,300. Eric All is $2,700. He's going to be 6% owned, which is kind of crazy to think about. So maybe Mike Gesicki at $3,400. His teammate is probably the better option in that game. But those would be the places that I would be looking at. Other than that, tight end's kind of a wasteland. If you wanted to punt it off, I would completely understand. Or if you wanted to pay up for Kittle, I would completely understand that on the main slate as well. Finally, defenses, in terms of ownership, it looks like 4 of them are going to be where everything is building around. The Broncos at 29, the Panthers at 24, the Seahawks at 35, and the Patriots at 2,900. Now, let me open your mind for a second. I know it's going to suck fading Jacobs and Wicks and Reed and Atwell and Jordan Love or Matt Stafford or Kyron Williams. You can just take the Packers D at $3,000 in that game, and hopefully Stafford throws it to them, they score a touchdown, keeps the Green Bay offense off the field. If you're going to fade that game, I do like the Packers defense. I mean, I like the Packers defense a lot anyway, because it's not like the Rams offensive line is suddenly healthy. So, and Stafford really should have thrown more interceptions last week than he did. So the Packers D could be a nice pivot off of that game stack, because that's going to be the highest stack game overall anyway. That's how I'd be looking at it with the Packers at $3,000. Other than that, I mean, the Bears at 36 are expensive. Same with the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners projected ownership right now is 1%. They're only $3,700. You can find a way to get to them I wouldn't go out of my way. The Packers are going to be 1% as well. The Packers are probably the better play at 3,000, but if you're just trying to land on teams a little bit down, Houston at 2,600, very high pressure rate. Josh Allen, no stranger to giving people the ball. Like, here you go, take it. I'll throw it backwards for you. So you can score on them that way, and that can hurt the Houston offense a lot too. So they're $2,600. After that, it's tough to see a lot of the pay down options being all that great. The Broncos at 29, as I mentioned, the Texans at 26. The Colts at 26 aren't bad against the Jags either, but it does seem like the Panthers are going to be the option for most people, just going up against Caleb Williams, that terrible offensive line at $2,400, and they just kind of make it work. But they are going to be relatively chalky. You should know that going into it, as that is the pay down option that people are going for. Are they really 10 times as likely to outscore the Rams, the Giants, or the Cardinals, all at similar prices? Probably not, but I couldn't tell you which one I feel good about amongst those other three. So Carolina, it's going to be just pair them up with Chuba and you'll be good to go. All this information, plus more, is going to be in the free Mayo Media newsletter coming out on Saturday evening. It'll have the updated rankings in it as well. You can still find the updated current rankings down in the description right now. Please subscribe to Mayo Media Network. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast as well. Smash like and comment in the comment section your single favorite Underdog Pick'em play of the week. And finally, use code Mayo at Underdog and get yourself a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. All right, I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!